everybody. Welcome to Corona TV on a Monday. I hope you guys didn't fall off your chair. Too much passion, too much energy, too much ambition, too much intensity. How can you have too much of anything like that when you have Mike Lipkin on the show? Welcome to the show, by the way.
Hey, just fabulous to be on, Joe. Good to see you. You know, in the age of COVID, Joe, if there's anything that I'm discovering now, it's, our common humanity and the discarding of things that are trivial and the discarding of things that really make us anxious or annoyed for nothing. I mean, we are really now confronted with existential issues. And in a curious kind of way, I'm feeling liberated because there were a whole lot of things that really bugged me pre-COVID that are not even on my radar anymore. In fact, every day I wake up and and in my mind's eye, I'm testing negative. And then I'm happy. And when I say testing negative, I don't mean IQ, I mean COVID. So I think if you haven't got COVID and you live to see another day and maybe observe another webcast and make a contribution to one other person, it's been a good day.
And who would have thought or thunk that testing negative would be a cause for a virtual cocktail or a celebration? But we do need to savor that victory.
There's a weird kind of paradox out there in the moment because on the one hand, we've got to keep our social distancing. And if you come closer than 6 feet, then you could be life-threatening. You could be a murderer. I mean, all it takes, Joe, is a cough, and you could kill me. On the other hand, I appreciate you like I've never appreciated anyone before. If you cannot hug and kiss and embrace literally, then you need to do it figuratively. So whether you're an introvert or whether you're an extrovert, make sure when you see people, you hugging and kissing and embracing and really demonstrating your appreciation of them through your voice, through your face, through your whole demeanor, like you're doing now. Because I see you do this every day. I think about the amount of work that you're putting into this, Joe. I mean, you've got to be doing this for the love because...
I'm playing around with my green screen, as you can see. I'm having what's known as a wardrobe malfunction. But you know what? You spoke about this idea of authentic humanity. Slick and perfect don't work. Zero defect is for machines, not human beings. And this is exactly what you're talking about, that it doesn't have to be perfect. We're making it up as we go along. We're trying to cope. We're trying to survive. Yeah. And it is that little bit what was that quote you used? The crack is how the light gets in. Yeah, have the courage to be vulnerable. I wrote all these notes down. So now I was thinking, instead of trying to subtly try and fix the green screen, I can do anything, right? So maybe I should play around with it and say, should I go with that? Or should I go with that? Or should I be an apparition?
It's interesting, the kind of subject matter that people most want to hear about now, and it has to do with mind, heart, body, and soul. My life, ended as I knew it on March 13, which was, kind of lockdown day. And now I'm having to communicate with folks like this. But what they don't want to hear is more statistics and more facts and more evidence of how the world's going to hell in a handbasket. What they want to hear about is those things that animate their spirit, those things that give them what I call tough-minded optimism. So not the kind of optimism that is hallucinatory, but the kind of optimism that you can believe in and can sustain you moving forward. People are social beings, and they want to be reminded that there are other people out there with beating hearts who care about them and who, Joe, are struggling and fumbling. There's no playbook for what we're going through. And so in a way, Joe, and this is what excites me, as I complete my, my fifth decade on this planet, no, my sixth decade on this planet, is that we're all beginners. We're all rookies here. We're all having to start all over again. Whoever radiates the most confidence and the most conviction and who demonstrates the most courage wins. I think what you're engaging in here is what I would brand as disingenuous modesty, because your skill is you tee up your guests and you make them look, so good. You've got this cryptic smile on your face, which says, I'm really appreciating it, but I also know that this is Lipkin being Lipkin and you appreciate it. And the way you framed the conversation means you've endeared yourself, you've endeared me to your millions of viewers, And so I can only be like this because you are being the way you be. And I have a phrase for it, Joe. I call it the potentiator. Now, a potentiator is someone who expands the power and the capacity of the people around him or her. So when someone like you is in the room with me today, virtually speaking, just being in your virtual presence, Joe, liberates me to play a higher level game. Whereas there are other people that when I'm in the room with them, I play a lower level game because I'm scared of how they're going to be critical. I'm scared they're going to be judgmental. I'm scared they're not going to ask me the questions that are going to enable me to be at my best. But with somebody like you, because of your skills and just your overall sense of magnanimity, you're liberating me to just be my crazy, genuine, over the top, don't give a damn, let's just motivate the planet kind of self. But I couldn't do this without your benign face looking back at me.
Wait, did you just call me disingenuous? I'm sure you've heard this phrase before. I don't know who coined it. Maybe I did. I'm going to take credit for it. Asynchronous intimacy. That really what happened in the...
Joe, I want to write that down. Just spell it for me.
I can't spell. Synchronous intimacy. But I remember writing about this idea.
That's good. So my coaching to you now, Joe, is when you throw out something that has that level of potential impact, don't treat it as a throwaway line. That could change the way we think as we know it.
I'm thinking of muting you at this point. But I do. So the idea of asynchronous intimacy is that, and this was during the good old days with social media. This is what happened when we felt like we knew someone, when we actually got to connect with them, even though we weren't physically with them, this ability to develop a relationship with someone virtually. But in many respects, what I love about this conversation is there's no synchronous or asynchronous, there's just intimacy. And we haven't spoken or haven't connected in decades. And here we are as if it was just yesterday, and maybe even better than when we actually did know each other. You make me want to be a better streamer. That's all I can say.
A better streamer.
No, definitely not that. I'm going to really mute you in a second.
About 30 years ago, when I went through my wrestling match with depression, I made a decision when I emerged from it that I would never, ever age. So I don't mean I'm not going to die, but I'm going to die young at the age of 100. That's my goal. And so I've made a deal with multiple devils to retain my youthfulness and really grow old disgracefully, but have fun and energize others along the way. And hopefully get invited to enough parties that I can share my secrets of eternal youth with a whole lot of other like-minded folks.
You've written multiple books, and your latest is called Dancing with Disruption. I want to talk about Lost and Found.
I mean, in a nutshell, until the age of 28, I could do no wrong. And then between the age of 28 and 30, I went through what some folks call the dark night of the soul. And then I emerged from it as rapidly as I went into it, and decided to write about it because at that time, Joe, there was a number of people that were going through it. And one of them was a guy called William Styron. If you remember William Styron, he won the Nobel Prize for his book, Sophie's Choice. And he then went into clinical depression, and he wrote a small monograph on his experience, and he called it Darkness Visible. And I remember reading that when I was still going through it. And I remember that while it didn't lift me up, it gave me some insight into what I was going through. So when I came out of it, I wrote an article for a South African magazine called Style. Remember Style magazine? And it was a 5,000-word article. And the response was so extraordinary that I then expanded that into this book. And at the time, it was pretty revolutionary. Now, opening your emotional kimono is de rigueur. And a lot of us are doing it on social media. But at that time, it was really one of the first instances of someone being willing to let other people into their mind and walk them through the kind of hell that depression is. And so over the years, it's probably sold almost 100,000 copies and really been a significant part of my journey. And in fact, to this day, Joe, I will tell you that I'm a little bit like a recovering alcoholic, because here I am as a motivational speaker who is always on the edge of the abyss of despair. And so part of the reason why I talk like this, and with this degree of animation, this degree of intensity, this degree of craziness, is I'm being like this for my sake more than anybody else's sake. Because here's what I know. When you talk a certain way, when you think a certain way, when you act a certain way, that's how you will actually feel. So one of my mantras, and if your folks take nothing else from this call but this statement, then my work here will be done. It goes like this. It's easier to act your way into a way of thinking than think your way into a way of acting. So it's easier to act your way into a way of thinking than think your way into a way of acting. And why is that an important mantra for this environment? Because if you have a vision or you want to make any kind of difference, just go and do it. Don't worry about how to do it. Just do it, and you'll figure it out as you go along. The way to get ready is to do it before you're ready. If you're waiting for perfect in this environment, if you're waiting for the stars to align, then you're going to die in your home. And when you talk about faith popcorn and cocooning, I think the new metaphor is crypting. You know, we really almost entombing ourselves in our homes. There's so many ways that we are all useless, and there's so many ways that things are so futile, and there's so many reasons to be resigned to just this terror out there. And then on the other hand, there are ways we can make a difference. You are doing it one way, I'm doing it another way. And maybe the challenge to everyone watching this is to find your way of just making that deposit on what we want this world to become or how we want to help people get there.
Yeah, I mean, all I was thinking, to go back to Jerry Seinfeld, you know the line, it's gold, Jerry, gold. That's what you just shared with us. It was gold, and it was beautiful. It's important to have someone like you on, and to have that energy, and to also understand where that energy comes from. And I didn't really know before. I didn't make that connection, that in a way you live on the edge. And you've embraced that edge too. But you also recognize that on any given day you could fall off the edge.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to straddle and you know, just keep moving forward. You spoke about this idea. I think it speaks to being on a tightrope. Whatever you do, don't stop. Don't look backwards. Don't hesitate. I feel like we've fallen off the tightrope. We're on the ground right now. So instead of worrying about falling, what we need to do is think about picking ourselves up and climbing up again. And I think it's an important distinction. There can be no fear. We have to be fearless.
My best days are ahead of me. And trust me, Joe, I'm not a religious man. I am becoming more religious the more this COVID continues. But I really believe my best days are ahead of me. And I love the idea that every day is our life in miniature. And I think whatever the opposite of Groundhog Day is, that's what we're going through.
You have reframed my reframe of your reframe of my reframe of your frame. And exactly, it's like jazz. It's like jazz. It's just getting.